Okay, so let's go straight to the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad was born in Mecca in about the year 570 CE. The religion of most people in Mecca and Arabia at the beginning of Muhammad's lifetime was polytheism. Christianity was found in places notably in Yemen and among the Arab tribes in the north under Byzantine rule. Judaism too was practiced in Yemen and around Yatrip, later renamed Medina. But the vast majority of the population of Arabia were polytheists. They believed in a chief god, Allah, but saw other deities as mediators between them and Him. The Qur'an mentions in particular the worship of idols, angels, the sun, and the moon as lesser gods. The Hajj pilgrimage to the Kaaba in Mecca, built, the Qur'an tells us, by Ibrahim alayhi salam, for the worship of the one God, was practiced, but that too had become corrupted with polytheism. Mecca was thus an important center for religion and for trade, with the caravans that traveled via Mecca between Yemen in the south and Syria in the north providing an important source of income. There was no central government. The harsh desert conditions brought competition for scarce resources and enforced solidarity within each tribe, but there was frequent fighting between tribes. Injustices were practiced against the weaker classes, particularly women, children, slaves, and the poor. Few hard facts are known about Muhammad's childhood. It is known that his father Abdullah died before he was born and his mother Amina when he was 6 years old, that his grandfather Abdul Muttalib then looked after him until 2 years later he too died. At the age of 8, Muhammad entered the guardianship of his uncle Abu Talib, who took him on a trade journey to the north when he was 12 years old. In his 20s, Muhammad was employed as a trader by a wealthy and well-respected widow, 15 years his senior, named Khadija. Impressed by his honesty and good character, she proposed a marriage to him. They were married for over 25 years until Khadija's death when Muhammad was some 49 years old. Khadija was a great support to her husband. After his marriage, Muhammad lived in Mecca, where he was a respected businessman and peacemaker. Muhammad was in the habit of taking regular periods of retreat and reflection in the cave of Hira, outside Mecca. This is where the first revelation of the Qur'an came to him in 610 CE, when he was about 40 years old. This initiated his prophethood. The Prophet was instructed to spread the teachings of the revelations he received to his larger family and beyond. However, although a few believed in him, the majority, especially the powerful, resented his calling them to abandon their gods. After all, many polytheist tribes came to Mecca on the pilgrimage, and the leaders feared that the new religion would threaten their own prestige and economic prosperity. They also felt it would disturb the social order, as it was quite outspoken in its preaching of equality between all people and its condemnation of the injustices done to the weaker members of the society. The hostility of the Meccans soon graduated from gentle ridicule to open conflict and the persecution of the Prophet's followers, many of whom the Prophet sent from the 5th year of his preaching to seek refuge with the Christian king of Abyssinia, Ethiopia. The remaining Muslims continued to be pressurized by the Meccans, who instituted a total boycott against the Prophet's clan, refusing to allow any social or economic dealings with them. In the middle of this hardship, the Prophet's wife Khadija and his uncle Abu Talib died, so depriving the Prophet of their great support. This year became known as the Year of Grief. However, events were soon to take a change for the better. The Prophet experienced the event known as the Night Journey and Ascension to the heaven, Isra wal Miraj, during which the Prophet was accompanied by Jibreel from the sanctuary of Mecca, first to Jerusalem and then to heaven. Soon afterwards, some people from Yatrip, a town some 400 kilometers north of Mecca, met the Prophet when they came to make the pilgrimage, and some of these accepted his faith. The following year, more returned from Yatrib, pledged to support him and invited him and his community to seek sanctuary in Yatrib. The Muslims began to migrate there, soon followed by the Prophet himself, narrowly escaping an attempt to assassinate him. This move to Yatrib, known as the migration, Hijrah, was later adopted as the start of the Muslim calendar. Upon arrival in Yatrib, the Prophet built the first masjid in Islam, and he spent most of his time there teaching and remolding the characters of the new Muslims, from unruly tribesmen into a brotherhood of believers. Guided by the Qur'an, he acted as teacher, judge, arbitrator, advisor, consoler, and father figure to the new community. One of the reasons the people of Yatrib invited the Prophet to migrate there was the hope that he would be a good arbitrator between their warring tribes, as indeed proved to be the case. Settling in Yatrib, The Prophet made a pact of mutual solidarity between the immigrants, Muhajirun, and the Muslims of Yatrip, known as the Ansar, helpers. This alliance, based not on tribal but on religious solidarity, was a departure from previous social norms. Muhammad also made a larger pact between all the tribes of Yatrib that they would all support one another in defending the city against attack. Each tribe would be equal under his arrangement, including the Jews, and free to practice their own religions. Islam spread quickly in Yatrib, which became known as Medina al-Nabi, the city of the Prophet, or simply Medina. This was the period in which the revelations began to contain legislation on all aspects of individual and communal life, as for the first time the Muslims had their own state. In the second year at Medina, 2 years after Hijrah, a Qur'anic revelation came allowing the Muslims to defend themselves militarily, and a number of battles against the Meccan disbelievers and their allies took place near Medina, starting with Badr shortly after this revelation, Uhud the following year, and the Battle of the Trench 6 years after Hijrah. The Meccans prevented the Muslims from undertaking a pilgrimage to Mecca. Negotiations followed, where the Muslims accepted that they would return to Medina for the time being, but come back the following year to finish the pilgrimage. A truce was agreed for 10 years. However, in the 8th year after Hijrah, a Meccan ally broke the truce. The Muslims advanced to attack Mecca, but its leader accepted Islam and surrendered without a fight. From this point onwards, delegations started coming from all areas of Arabia to meet the Prophet and make peace with him. In the 10th year after Hijrah, the Prophet made his last pilgrimage to Mecca and gave a farewell speech on the Mount of Mercy, declaring equality and solidarity between all Muslims. By this time, the whole Arabian Peninsula had accepted Islam, and all the warring tribes were united in one state under one head. Soon after his return to Medina in the year 632, the 10th Hijri, the Prophet received the last revelation of the Qur'an and shortly thereafter died. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. His role as leader of the Islamic State was taken over by Abu Bakr, followed by Umar and Uthman, who oversaw the phenomenal spread of Islam beyond Arabia. They were followed by Ali. These 4 leaders are called the rightly guided caliphs. After Ali, the first political dynasty of Islam, the Umayyads, came into power. There had, however, been some friction between the Muslim community on the question of succession to the Prophet after his death. The Shias, or supporters of Ali, felt that Ali and not Abu Bakr was the appropriate person to take on the mantle of head of the community. They believed that the leadership should then follow the line of descendants of the Prophet, through the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law Ali. After Ali's death, they adopted his sons Hassan and then Hussein as their leader or imam. After the latter's death, in the Battle of Karbala in Iraq, Hussein took on a special significance for the Shiite community. He is mourned every year on the day of Ashura. Some Shia believe that the Prophet's line ended with the 7th Imam Ismail. Others believe that the line continued as far as the 12th Imam in the 9th century. The Islamic State stretched by the end of its 1st century from Spain across North Africa to Sindh in northwest India. In later centuries, it expanded further, still to include large parts of East and West Africa, India, Central and Southeast Asia, and parts of China and Southern Europe. Muslim migrants like the Turks and Tatars also spread into parts of Northern Europe, such as Kazan and Poland. After the Second World War, there was another major influx of Muslims into all areas of the world, including Europe, America, and Australia, and many people from these continents converted to the new faith. The total population of Muslims is now estimated at more than 1 billion, of which the great majority are Sunni, about 1/5 of the entire population of the world, and Islam is said to be the fastest growing religion in the world. Next one is going to be the revelation of the Qur'an, which I will read next time, inshallah.